Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the University of the Future panel discussion. I'm Guy Perring, Regional Director for iGraduate, of which a little more later. We have a very distinguished panel here, all VCs from both the public and private sectors. Three here joining me on the stage, and also we have two speakers, hopefully, joining us online. I'll rely on the technology, as we've all had to over the last few months. If you don't mind, I won't read out their biographies. They're all in the booklet, which you can read, or you can obviously download that online as well. To my right, we have Prof. Hamdi, who's the Vice-Chancellor of University Malaya. To my left, Prof. Zita, Vice-Chancellor of Quest University. Luan, Vice-Chancellor of the International University of Malaya-Wales. And joining us online, I hope, I can't see them, I saw them briefly for the moment, but we have Prof. Mushtak, there he is, Prof. Mushtak, Vice-Chancellor of Heriot-Watt University out in Putrajaya, and Professor Lily Chan, who's Vice-Chancellor of Wawasan Open University in Penang. Well, we were here in July, and who would have thought we'd still be in the grip of the pandemic? Although there does appear to be a light at the end of the tunnel. The work I and iGraduate do with the student experience indicates they were very satisfied with both the government and the institutional response at the start of the pandemic, especially the rapid switch to online provision that all institutions had to go through. In Malaysia, for example, 75% of students said they were either satisfied or very satisfied with the online experience, and that compared very favourably with the surveys we did globally, which was only 68% satisfaction. But they've been less satisfied with the social aspects. And we know how important it is to students that they make new friends, that they build a network for the future. So the challenge for all of us, I think, is to ensure students still benefit from the learning in either an online or hybrid environment, which the Minister indicated earlier in her speech, but also that they have those social interactions that are so important, that vital part of university life. So that's enough from me. So now I'm going to pass over to our panel. I've told them to keep their remarks relatively brief, to about 6 minutes for an opening address. I hope you're all ready to ask lots of questions about the University of the Future. So first of all, I'll ask Prof. Hamdi to give his opening remarks about how he sees the University of the Future and what it may look like, and also from his personal experience at both UKM and UM. Prof. Hamdi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Guy. Very good morning to everybody and to the respective speakers. I'm coming to my 4th month in University Malaya after serving UKM for 22 months. So it's rather new to me, and both universities are research universities. University Malaya, being the premier university in the country, has to move forward very fast in order to build this university for the future. My view is that in the future, the university like University Malaya is a public university. In my opinion, the over-reliance of public local universities on the government is tremendously diminishing, particularly in the form of the financial support. Universities in Malaysia, public universities, have to work very hard, very differently, and in the future, the funding from the government might reduce significantly, which we have seen over the years. And this has basically shifted the mindset of most of the vice-chancellors. So in future, we are seeing that there will be a very blurring demarcation line between public university and also public and private universities. A lot of public universities now is behaving and shifting very fast towards becoming a semi-private university. So private-public is becoming unclear now. For example, University of Malaya is now taking students fully sponsored by the government, as well as taking the non-sponsored students. So these are privately paying students where they are paying the cost, the actual cost of the education. So I can see that in future, the public university in Malaysia, at least for the next 5 to 10 years, will be shifting very rapidly towards this model, and it's going to pose a bit of threat in a way to the private university, even though we probably are focusing on different market segments. I think that's number one. Number two, again on the financial aspect, the university is really can't depend too much on numbers. Universities in Malaysia, particularly the public universities, have got lots of assets sitting on a gold mine, but we are not being trained. We, when I say we, the management, the leaders of public universities are not being trained or properly trained to actually exploit, monetize these assets. I think now, again, there's a huge shift in the mindset where once the money is not there, then you have to start diversifying what you are doing. And relying on the number of students will be very, very difficult because, again, the bulk of the students are government-sponsored, where they are actually paying just 10% of the overall cost. And you can't really touch the fees, the tuition fees. Very sensitive issue. And the government, since are just helping the public universities with this emolument, nothing else. A very small amount are being given yearly, depends on the budget, on development, but those are very, very small in comparison to what the university require. Thirdly, for research university like University Malaya, the only thing that will keep us surviving, apart from the financial strength, is the quality and the standards of our training, our teaching and learning, and also the research, and of course the service. So university will have to ensure that we keep on pushing the boundary of quality. There will be no compromise whatsoever in terms of getting people to come in as lecturers, getting the students to come in as our customers, you know, and providing service to them. So universities must actually ensure the quality without compromising any of those elements. And I think this is what the university should be looking at very, very seriously. Huge area in the university, public universities like University Malaya, is on research. And now the issue in research, in the future, for example, where are these research going to be? Is it just for the sake of research and publishing papers like before? I think now the trend has changed very fast, where we understand that now any of our research output has to be increased into becoming impactful, either to the government agencies or to the society, and particularly to the industry. So again, we are shifting very fast in that mode, and I hope that in future we are going to be maintaining this. University Malaya has got no choice but to maintain all this credibility when it comes to quality and standards and excellence as well. So I think probably as a starting ground, I'm touching only on the elements of financial sustainability and how the students will be largely coming from two segments, and thirdly, the quality and the excellence that university has to maintain in order to go into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. You mentioned about, obviously, UM and UKM, and the blurring between public and private. Do you think some of the smaller public institutions in more rural areas who are less well-resourced may struggle to make that shift?
It depends very much now, because everybody, as I mentioned, all public universities are now slowly shifting. Some are faster than the other, and some are getting, because of the COVID situation, they are basically, it's a blessing in disguise to some of the remote universities in some part of Malaysia.
Sure.
They are getting problem before in getting students, because students are congregating mainly in the city, where all the happenings are. But now, due to the remote learning and online learning, they are actually surviving in a way because they can get students without having them to be present physically. So the COVID has posed an opportunity as well as challenges that we have seen. And I have seen colleagues from other universities remotely has now getting more students than before when they have never had opportunity to attract them. So again, the remote learning, the online and hybrid has given rise to opportunities.
That's a very good point, absolutely. So obviously from the oldest university in Malaysia now to one of the youngest. Prof. Zita, tell us a bit about Quest.
Thank you very much, Guy, fellow speakers, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, I was thinking we are on the one extreme end to the other from a very well established premier university, talking about their challenges, and here I'm talking about a very young, emerging university. I would say young, but I felt that the university, the challenges that we are facing is no less than the established public university. But as a young emerging university, I think the advantage of being private on one hand is being a lot more flexible, a lot more agile. The changes in the machinery system within the university, I think, is a lot more less cumbersome. And I think at the end of the day, I think the challenges that we face are the same. I mean, talking about the online learning, student experiences, and so on. I think the online learning and quality student experiences, I felt that last year when we jumped into this, we were, I think, really seriously trying to manage learning on a continuous basis, remote learning, remote working, using technology as much as we could, without very in-depth preparation. Come 2021, I think the scenario should change as we reflect and then move on looking at technology and providing. I found that online learning, online activities, student activities actually could be done very well. There's a lot of webinars, there's a lot of interaction, students are happier, more confident with online learning, the way they interact and so on. Of course, there are issues still in terms of online learning effectiveness. I think it's the university's responsibility to have internal quality system to make sure that the quality of learning is not compromised, assessed and well evidenced. I think my other point that there are two things I wanted to raise is about, how we are trying at Quest University to actually digitalize our whole system. It's an ecosystem within the university that really needs to address digitalization, right from the management system, the quality system, teaching learning system, assessment system, core curricular activities, all the, interaction can be done, and therefore you need a very strong technology system, capacity building for staff and so on, so that we move along on the same platform concurrently. These are concurrent issues that we face, but we need to manage it and manage it well. My other point, I think the other one that I wanted to talk about is about working with multiple partners. I think in enhancing student experiences and so on, I think working with multiple partners is extremely important, being in Perak, because I think we work very closely with industries. The internships are very important, continuous professional development for students upon exit is extremely important. Feedback, shaping the students' character, I think is one of the key philosophy in Quest. We believe in inclusivity. We believe that we should be very strong on sustainable development goals. And also one tagline we use very strongly is no one is left behind. So you really need to provide good student support services to make sure the students who are largely for middle class group are actually experiencing quality education. The other thing that I felt was a challenge for us is to really diversify our provisions, our training and programs. I think running a traditional program is no longer enough. You need to look at your clientele, you need to look at the learners, the range of people who needs learning, upskilling, reskilling in our community at national level, state level. And I think as a university, we should be able to become diversified, agile in addressing the needs of the local industry especially. So we work very closely with a number of industries because their industry standards are important for our students, for them to be able to meet the gaps in the work sector. And often they say the skills are not enough. So we work very closely with them. A continuous effort needs to be there to enhance students' skills in terms of employability and so on. I think it's important for universities like Quest to be able to diversify its income. I think we have a target that once the new campus is built, and we are really looking forward to the new campus, so we can design new systems inside, new content, new systems inside. It's about the diversity of the provisions and allowing different sectors to come in to learn, to train, to pick up credentials which are validated and recognized. So there are lots of things, I think, for us at Quest University to be able to address, and I think among the two most important requirements is the digitalization of the whole system at the universities level, right down to the various units, and two, working closely with the industry and empowering our faculties to be able to do this with some level of flexibility and support from the top management. Yep.
Great, thank you
Thank
very much, Prof. Zita. You're building a new campus just outside to the south of Eton.
Yes, that's right.
Have you now had the opportunity, it's kind of a golden opportunity, because you
Of
can
course.
repurpose the campus to suit the new normal, I guess. Has that been a...
Yeah, I think the design itself, the way they have actually planned the whole thing is to create the whole learning system, the whole learning ecosystem within the university itself. It's no more the traditional libraries, a lot of open spaces, a lot of strong technology support within the system, and so on, with labs or hubs for research and commercialization, because we felt that we cannot be dependent on student fees to finance the university, so we need to diversify our income. So that campus has been designed to include that new learning ecosystem that we felt is important for future universities, because that's coming. And I think what we are doing now in Quest, as it stands now, is to be prepared with all these programs, systems, technology, so that we are ready to move on into the new campus with all this kind of setup. I think it's a dream that we all really, really excite all of us at Quest University.
Great, thank you so much. And now over to KK Luan from the Vice-Chancellor of International University, Malaya-Wales, a relatively new international partnership, but tell us about your experience as VC of International University, Malaya-Wales.
Thank you, Guy. I want to use up the 6 minutes into 3 categories. First one, I'll just briefly give the background as to where we are, and followed by what it must do to be relevant in the future, and what are the success factors that comes with it. Now, the International University of Malaya and Wales is an outcome of a joint venture between 2 very established names in the education, University of Malaya and University of Wales. Both these institutions both made up at least 2 centuries worth of know-how, knowledge, and as well as the intellectual abilities. So really, there should be no reason why the new baby in town, started in 2013, should not be able to leverage the strengths of its founding fathers. But since its inception in 2013, there are a lot of valuable lessons learned. I also learned that in the education sector, the shelf life of products are getting shorter, as well as the business model continues to evolve. Particularly so when you come from a model that is based on institutional ownership, with a diversity of interests, as well as changing in the policies as well as focus. Then there is a need to have a very unique selling points. These are the challenges facing any new university operating in a very red ocean environment. One of the things I think any university would attest to, particularly those in the private universities, efficiency is a very common word, used so in the everyday language. If you don't manage your cash flow, if you don't manage your projects well, if you don't ensure that there's efficiency, you are bound to fall into the red, and therefore it is hard to get out of it. The infrastructures, developments, and required for a private university survival and prosperity very much relies on how well you make use of your investments as well as your facilities. Then there is also the need to understand the fickle-mindedness of the market. On one hand, we talk about AI. On the other hand, you talk about something else. How does a university with its gestation of between 3 to 5 years plus its development be able to respond to industry needs? The industry needs changes all the time. Ask them again in 6 months' time, they will give you a different answers. Ask them again in 5 or 6 years ago, the industry will tell you their needs are very different from what's today. So where do the universities lie in order to support the needs of the industry is always a challenge. In doing so, one of the chief lessons learned in any younger university is it must have its ability and the capacity to change. The capacity to change is not just in embracing the know-how in technology. Culture, leadership, and so on, and everything else that we heard of are very, very normal, and these are very, very required in order for the university to remain viable. Then the question is, what must it do in order to build its, or future-proof its university? In doing so, a commercial university which, with very little access to public funds, in fact, zero at all, the future has to be defined by a number of things. One, it is the ability to create a blended and mixed systems, which is the delivery systems. The delivery systems is very much defined by the industry as productivity. Today, we call it value. Tomorrow, we call it something else. And that itself, it's a challenge facing the private universities. Then importantly is the brand differentiation. Eventually, you'll find that university will find its own brand, known for some things and not known for other things. Private university, whatever size they have to be known for something. Good or bad, university reputation is important to any decision making by parents, by young people, or even by mature adults in choosing their place of learning. Collaboration is important. Here, I like to leverage on what Prof. Hamdi was saying just now about the need to collaborate, the need to leverage, and the need to perhaps even consider possibility of a public-private sector partnership. But here I like to leverage on my years of experience in the field of consultancies, as well as in the field of financial management. The outsourcing opportunities is now available for those established universities or those universities with the right competency in order to assist others in a commercial way, to help many other colleges of higher learning that requires assistance in a friendly way in order to survive in this volatile and often very much in a very hostile environment. So that's one. Second one, I foresee that in the next 5 years, there will be takeovers. Takeovers, mergers, whether it's hostile or not, it will happen eventually. The market is crowded with many players, but the market remains static for a while, and there will be a need for such things. Looking at the crystal ball, I would imagine the success factors are few. One is that the right investment has to be really right. You've got to have the right governance with the right people behind to determine the investment that is in the right course of directions. Often than not, you will find that education is a long term. It is not about throwing some seeds and expect it to grow tomorrow. It is about nurturing, it is about patience, it is about focusing on the right things and ensuring that, that you have the right people on board with the right skills and integrity to make sure that these are being done in the rightful way. And one other factor which I thought is good to remind ourselves, public universities as well as many private universities are notoriously bad in managing costs. And that's why I urge that this is one of the factors that must be considered in managing the forward and building the future for this particular sector.
Perfect, thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up. You mentioned the importance of capacity for change. Now, you have the challenge that you've got two partners. You've got University of Malaya, you've got University of Wales. How do you ensure that they are on board for that capacity to change?
The important thing here is engagement. Continuous engagement with full bout of persuasions and as well as determination. Plus, most important of all, building a case for change. I think that's important. I think end of the day, whether you are in public or private sector, the important thing is that the need to communicate clearly and the need to understand the case for change. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to go over to Penang, where hopefully Prof. Lily Chan is standing by.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi, Lily. You're Vice-Chancellor for Wawasan Open University. Obviously, you should be ideally positioned for the changes we're going through. We look forward to your opening remarks, Lily.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ideally we should be. But you realize when this happened, infrastructure was a major issue. Our staff, less so our students, because they came to the university knowing that a lot of their studies will be offline, will be online, and they don't need to show up on campus. They only show up once a month for the tutorials. So the students were generally okay, but little did we realize that many of them were actually using the Wi-Fi and the bandwidth at their workplace. So when this happened, there were quite a number of students who could not get access to bandwidth and Wi-Fi. On the staff side, because they all came on campus, they worked on campus, we also had staff who could not log on onto the infrastructure. So during those first 1 month, 2 months, there was a lot of activities to make sure everyone can be connected. But I want to talk about 3 things. Yes, ideally we should be positioned. And when I first came on board, I thought that open distance learning university, our student population will be mainly more senior adults. But in looking at the data, surprisingly, a large majority of our students are under 35. They're all working adults under 35, which meant that there is a long future ahead of them, a long career ahead of them. And how can a university like WOU provide all those skill sets that are not only relevant, but allows them to upgrade in whatever industry they are coming from? So I will come back to this in a little while. Let's also think about student engagement. I tell my staff, if we are open distance learning, it doesn't mean that our relationships with our students should be distant. How do you then create a culture that while they are distant and they are remote or they are away from you, there is a community online with your students? We're different from a face-to-face university. Parents send their students to traditional universities because they want the networking, they want to make the friends. Our students have to work for a living. But at the same time, how do we pull together the community so that while they're working for a living, they also can form those relationships and those networks? So that's another area that we are looking into. How do we make this remote distance learning experience a little bit more engaging, a little bit more collegiate? It's not easy. It needs thinking out of the box, how to do this. The other aspect on students who come to an ODL university, when I first came on board, I was told by my predecessors that if 15% of the students finish at an ODL university, you should be happy. When I heard that statement, I said, no. I want 80% or 90% of our students to finish. Why? Because they came to WOU for a degree. What happened along the way? Why didn't they finish? What can we do to ensure that our students can finish? And I liken this to an analogy I use with my staff. Imagine the express train from Penang to Singapore. Most universities, the students get onto the express train. 3 years later, they arrive in Singapore, no problems. Our students may stop in Ipoh and go wandering around. They may stop in KL and go wandering around, and we don't know where they are, and they have to come back and finish that journey. This is another thing that we're starting to institute within our organization. We need to know, why are they not coming back? Can we improve the percentage of 15% to 80 or 90%? We are a private university. That is important. We spend a lot of money in marketing. I'm sure all of you can appreciate that. So this is the second thing that in the last 1 year, and actually the COVID pushed us further into this thinking, and many of our students did come back. So we're quite fortunate because they're stuck at home. They couldn't do much. So signing up, re-enrolling became quite important for these students. Third thing, how do we make the skill sets relevant? They are already working. They came for a degree with a hope that they can be promoted, with a hope that they can move on to a better job. Along these lines, right in the midst of the COVID and through a lot of planning, we launched and started a School of Digital Technology. We've been talking about digitalization. We now have to make it into a reality. And in this school, we will start out with a couple of programs where our students will be able to learn and study skill sets right from the beginning of the first and the second year. Because it is a part-time university, they can go back to work and continue with us. We are launching the School of Digital Technology in the midst of the Heritage District in Georgetown, Penang. And the whole thinking and the idea is to be able to work within the ecosystem with partners from industry to come in, not just with WOU, but with Digital Penang, with Think City Development, with the Penang State Government, with also USM, I hope, as partners to make this part of Georgetown thriving, interesting, providing a pipeline of students who really understand digital skills. And to that end, at the end of the day, I'm making my staff rethink, how can we incorporate a base and a foundation of digital skill sets across all programs, from business to education? I think it's very important. We talk about it, but as VCs and leaders of the organizations, we need to think about how can we impart and inculcate this foundation of digital skill sets throughout the whole university. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Lily. Just a quick follow-up. You mentioned you were surprised of the demographic makeup of the university. How do you think that's going to change over time at your institution, both in terms of where the students are living, in terms of location, but also the demographic age groups that you appeal to?
I think it's going to increase. They will get younger and younger because the economics and the economy today is making it a bit difficult for travel. It's also making it a bit difficult financially on the families. So they would want their kids to go out and get a part-time job, at the same time be able to study. We will start to see students opting for ODL younger and younger, but we target just a segment, of the population, student population in Malaysia. Great. So I anticipate it to be younger. Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Yes. Now moving from Penang to Putrajaya, Prof. Mushtak, are you there?
Yes, I am, Guy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Obviously, Heriot-Watt has campuses in Putrajaya, in Scotland and Dubai, so you must be very well practiced in Zoom and Teams and Google, so I imagine the transition was very smooth.
Yes, to a large extent, actually, if we view things from a technological point of view. But since we are talking about the future of university, maybe I wanted to widen the conversation a little bit.
Please.
And when you think of moments of crises like the COVID-19 situation, these are moments where what we believe in generally get challenged, and what we value get challenged. I think all of us remember the pictures that we've seen of people fighting over toilet paper. And this is real. So people, adults, decided that this item is so valuable that they are willing to put themselves into the way of harm and maybe even harm other people just to get it. And there are other things that became probably less valuable. So if I give you a discounted air ticket to go somewhere, you would have not taken that. So there's this notion of changes of what we value at one sense, but at one side, but at the same time, there's this realization that value is essentially human. So what and who give value to things is us. And that's very reassuring. So I think what has happened to all of us, I'll speak about our university, but I could speak for maybe the whole sector. Many of us were proud of their campuses. They're proud of the fact that students like us could travel between campuses seamlessly, and all of that disappeared. We can't say, come to our beautiful campuses or come to our world-class Go Global program because nobody can travel. So COVID, I think, pushed all of us to think, what value are we adding as a university and as a sector? And to our minds, we are here to optimize the human potential. And I know everybody is saying that, but bear with me. Any human being brings to any endeavor 3 types of capabilities. We call them the 3 labors. So we bring our physical labor, our muscular capability to manipulate and move things around. We bring our cognitive labor, and we bring also our emotional labor. Our emotional labor is about that ability to build trust, to connect with people, to understand ourselves, and to do the right thing. And we have been really, as a humanity, on a journey of displacing ourselves. So first, during the first industrial revolution, where we built machines that are faster and stronger than us, where our physical labor became a bit less important. During the current revolution, sometimes called the fourth industrial revolution, it's the times where our computers are becoming cognitively superior in a lot of ways to us humans. Let's take memory, for example. No one could claim that they have more memory than a computer, and also analysis and dealing with large sets of data and things like that. So what is left? Actually, what is left for us is our emotional potential. So how can universities be able to optimize that, prepare our youth, prepare our future generations, prepare even our working adults so that they are able to leverage really what makes us truly human. At Heriot-Watt University, we call this positive education, and it's centered and centers around we equipping our community, our staff, and our students with that sense of purpose. We encourage people to reflect over what brings meaning and deep motivation to their lives. There's also another element that we believe that the future jobs would require besides that emotional capability, which is creativity. So interestingly, creativity is human by definition. Even if a computer is able to produce very beautiful drawings, you will not pay a lot of money for it because it's machine made. So these are really the 2 remaining things that we would like to focus on. So how are we doing that? At Heriot-Watt University, we use what we call responsive blended learning, or RBL. And responsive blended learning is really just a promise to our students that we will get you there. If the campus is closed, we have the technology. If we are allowed to bring you on campus, we will bring you on campus. If we can do a combination, because some students can come on campus, some can't travel, we will do that. So currently, we are moving towards really making everything available simultaneously on campus if students are willing and able to come on campus, but also digitally. But this is just the technology. We are we think the changes that we need to make are, and that we are working on, are much deeper than that. So we talk about emotional potential, we talk about creativity, and we ask ourselves, are we emotionally aware as staff? Are we creative enough as lecturers and academics? We can't inculcate these skills into our students unless we embody them. So this will remain to be our challenge and also our biggest opportunities. The other thing that we are focusing on now is to, as you've mentioned, Guy, to leverage our global presence, because we think this brings a huge advantage to our university to be available in Asia, in the Middle East, and also in Europe, with a very strong presence, both physically and also from a heritage and time point of view. So this is the second thing that we are working on. The third thing, which is equally important, we are working through our partnerships within Malaysia, but also within the world, with other universities and through trade unions and chambers of commerce, and we are utilizing our full influence weight on trying to build future-looking policies. Because at the end of the day, policies in the countries where we operate need to respond. Otherwise, it's going to be almost impossible for us to really build the university of the future. And we think we as a university, maybe we are in a unique position to bring policies from Scotland, from United Arab Emirates, compare them to those of Malaysia, and show the policymakers whatever is happening at different parts of the world. So these are the things that we are working on, and I'll stop here and happy to have the conversation later, Guy. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Mushtak. Just a quick follow-up. I mean, many staff and students have kind of flourished online, but some have struggled. How have you tackled some of the issues of those students who've perhaps struggled more online, and indeed staff?
Yes, so really what we did was focus on that sense of purpose. We reminded people why they are in this industry. So it's very interesting that when people are struggling, and then we just remind them, if you talk about the staff and say, look, we are here to get the students through. Imagine the student graduating. And that really makes a difference. Now we also need to equip these people, make sure that they have working internet, they have a right laptop with them at home. So we took care of that, the bolts and nuts, but really that sense of purpose was so essential. Likewise for the students, every one of our students at the beginning of their study, we asked them, what impact do you want to have on the world? We asked them to develop an impact statement of how do they want to make the world a better place. And these are things that are really carrying the way through us. Again, after we make sure that the classes are available and the tutorials are available and so on.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we've got some time hopefully for questions from the floor. There's a microphone in the middle. If you could raise your hand, and there's somebody already at the back who's got their hand raised. If you could come up to the microphone, please introduce yourself. Sorry, I can't see so clearly with the lights in my eyes. And please try and keep your question brief.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. If you could just tell me your name and what institution you're from.
Okay. My name is Mohammed Nasif. I'm international student at NT University.
Okay, great.
I have a question for our honorable guest from University of Malaya.
Sure.
Do you think that the total privatization of higher education institution and cutting funds from units and treating students as customers will compromise the quality of education? And does measuring student satisfaction is a good indicator about that they are getting what they need, not what they want?
Great, thank you very much. That's a great question, Prof. Hamdi. No, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. That's a very good question. The students are not the cash cow. We are just in Malaya. We calculated the actual cost of a program, and we actually put that as our fee, tuition fee. We are not making money for sake of profit-making organization. Malaya is a non-profit making organization. It is just charging the students, incoming students which are not been under scholarship or whatever. We are just charging them the cost of the education. Hence, not reaping the students out of their pocket. Number one. Number two, student satisfaction is extremely important in University of Malaya. We want the student, because students are becoming and behaving more like customer, and we need to understand what their needs, and we take very serious account of whatever that they're mentioning to the university. The experience that the students gone through in the classroom and outside the classroom is our utmost importance in the University of Malaya. Hence, what we are doing now is trying to expose the students, not only through the teaching and learning experiences, but also with the strategy that we are doing now, democratizing the knowledge, where we are opening up classrooms now. Classrooms are very elitist previously. It's just owned by the lecturer and the 30, 40 odd number of students in the class. What we are doing now in UM is opening up the class. We are allowing people from industry to actually come and take up classes. They can actually choose either to follow up the entire 14 weeks of classes, or they can choose which topics that they want, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, for example, with minimum charges. We want the industry to come, reskill themselves, retool themselves, and in doing so, interact with our students as well. That's not only the case that we are providing. Number two is we are allowing our own staff to actually come into the classroom by looking at what are the gaps in their competency and strategically intervene by asking them to join specific classes. So you'll see in the class, we have the industry, we have the staff of the university as well, apart from the students. And we are also opening up our classroom for professors, our academics, our faculty to actually join. Say, for example, I'm a mechanical engineer. I want to know something about environmental law, for example. I can join the law faculty, look up in the book where exactly that the lecturer will be teaching environmental law, and join the class for free. So in the classroom, there will be interaction between the students, the industry, the staff, and the academics. There will be 4 components inside there, interacting with each other. I think this will expose the student even better with connections and connectivity. So yeah, we are charging the students at cost, number one, and yes, we do take students' feedback very, very seriously, because we are there to actually provide students with the best education possible.
Great, thank you very much. I should mention, and I would be remiss not to, that I Graduate, my organisation, that's kind of one of our roles, is to benchmark student satisfaction globally, and obviously we regard that as very important, and you are one of our key clients as well. You raised an interesting question though, the student as a customer. Would anybody else from the panel like to comment on the idea of a student as a customer?
Yes, particularly so for private universities. I would imagine that 90% above of their total revenue comes from student fees and everything else. Hence, there may be a risk of university being held hostage to students' whims and fancies and demands against a very regulated regime. This is where one has to draw the line somewhere where you say that universities have to abide and obey the rules. Students will say, I don't want the rules. I want it to be personalized to my lifestyle, to what I want. For instance, today, I think I grew up in a campus university environment where football fields, swimming pools, snooker bars are all, what I want. Today, a 19-year-old boy will say that those are my grandfather's generation. They are looking at a technology, enabled, communities where they can be there, if possible, 24/7, do what they want, treat that as a second homes, and be able to interact socially as well as whatever they want to do to fit their lifestyle. So that poses the dilemma of a private university, which have to balance between the commercial and non-commercial
Sure.
deliverables. Compared to public university, you can always say, look, you don't pay this fee, you know, sorry, you shut up and get on with it, you know. But the private universities can't, you know, so that's the difference.
I mean, Prof. Zita, what about the parents as customers as well? Because in the end, the parents are the ones paying.
We have no shot of that as well.
The parents are often the ones paying those fees.
Yeah, these are some of the challenges we actually face. I think overall, I would say the Quest students are, I think in a way, well supported for all kinds of activities. They have room, they have student council that are very vocal. The surveys are very important. Feedback to them is extremely important. Occasionally, we get parents who come in who have different demands. But I find that so far, I think students in Perak are quite, you know, not like students in KL, I suppose. Yeah. The demands are different. So far, my experience being there we need to give good answers, right answers to the parents that come with all kinds of questions. Assure them what we can do for them, what are the things that the students have to address. There's no shortcut. There's no bending too much of the rules that are required. I think we are very conscious of all the regulations and policies that we have to abide with. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Let's turn to the floor again. Any more questions? Yes, please. If you just walk up to the microphone, then.
Yep, I'm at the mic. Good morning, Azlan Sharoom, International Schools Partnership. Question for the Vice-Chancellors. Do you see a shift from the emphasis of tertiary education from the building of the human to one of adapting towards skills for industry? And in relation to that, what are your views of what schools could or should be doing different or better to prepare the young for the next stage?
And when you refer to schools, you mean K-12?
K-12,
Yeah?
K-12, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Perhaps I can move to Lily or Mushtak, who are online. Do you want to?
Yes.
Do you hear that question?
Yes, I do.
Lily,
I think
do you want to start?
Yeah, it's a very philosophical question, and it's a question that is being. All of us would have it in our thoughts. There is a tension between what is the fundamental of education, producing well-rounded individuals versus students with relevant skill sets. And I think most universities will have a combination of two because of arts and humanities, liberal arts, to provide the foundation for well-rounded individuals, and also skills future and putting in the skill sets for the students. There will always be that tension. Even in the top universities, you will find that tension starting to percolate on the ground. And I think it's going to be different for every university based on your own brand, based on how you view your target audience and where you want to put your focus on. That's how I see it.
Thanks, Lily.
Can I add something? Yes,
Yeah,
thank
please.
you very much. Yes, I agree. This is philosophical, but I really believe that the market forces is forcing it on us because the skills themselves are slowly being automated, and as more skills get automated, what we will need to add value is the human skills. And these are the communication, the creativity, the sense of purpose, what brings meaning to our lives and understanding ourselves. And I personally believe that the next decade is going to see that move towards focusing on on building the human, because this is the only thing that's left to be built. And that will be really what will be demanded, even by the industry themselves, or even by employability. You know, there are many people who don't need even an employability. They may go and do their own business or work in the creative industry or something like that. So I think this is a movement of history to move from the physical labor to the cognitive labor and emotionally to developing the the emotional labor, which is really the most difficult, by the way, to build character and to build well-being and build sense of purpose. It is where the effort of the future, of the university of the future, and also the schools is going to be focused.
Great, thank you very much, Mushtak. Prof. Hamdi, the questioner also raised the idea of how schools can better prepare students for their entry into university.
Well, each cohort in Malaysia, there are around 500,000 students. These 500,000 basically travel through time and then reach the university. And 50,000 of them will actually enter university system. With the private university, there's another 15% of that, will actually get into the university. So in total, we are looking at 150,000 of the students of the cohort will actually enter tertiary education. So this is a huge number for the country. And in my opinion is that is very, very vital, because this is a projectiles. This is a trajectory from the K to 12 and entering into tertiary education. And failure to prepare the students into the university life will then put a lot of burden in the university. For example, the English competency. We are expecting the university to actually prepare them fully, whereby apart from that preparation should be done at the university level, at the K to 12 level, the school level. Likewise, the preparation of soft skill, as if everything should be then, be provided at the university level, which is impossible. Universities can cater for specific elements, yes, but a lot of those bulk skill set should actually come from the schools. And this is, I think, the mismatch that we are looking at now. Hence, it is the blaming game to the tertiary education, as if the university has failed tremendously in providing the right skill set for students, for the graduates when they enter the job market. So I think if we can really solve this issue of preparing the generation, the cohort, with the right, with the minimum or the acceptable level of skills before they enter the university, then I think the university can actually push this skill set to another higher level. Then we can see that the trajectory can be smoothly provided by the schools and the university.
Great, thank you very much. Would either of you like to comment on that question? Yeah, Prof. Zita, go ahead.
I think the philosophy in the K-12 schools, Prof. Hamdi, I think it's very clear. They want to shape the young kids with all these requirements. The akhlaq, the ilmu, the language skills are all there. And perhaps that's another area to look at. I also recall when I was my previous life, I visited UC Malaya for a workshop when we were introducing Malaysian qualifications framework. And one of the questions asked was, why is the university having to, build up these basic skills, language skills, thinking skills coming from the school? Why can't we have a seamless progress from basic education to tertiary education? So that actually, by the time they reach tertiary education, the level of treatment to the students, the teaching learning will be at a higher level. Not addressing the foundational skills. I think these are some questions that I think we all still have questions to ask ourselves on this. But my issue is whether there's a tension between employment skills, industrial skills. I think the university is intended to develop the person holistically. Allow them to be lifelong learners. Provide them the foundation of learning and training so that they can chart their progress from university to work and continuously build themselves, because I think that's the only way the human resource capital can actually grow. Provide them with all those skills so they know where to get those skills when they come back, whenever they need it.
Great, thank you very much. Let's have some more questions from the audience. We had some hands raised. If you can just move to the microphone. Wonderful, thank you. If you could introduce yourself.
Hi, good morning. My name is Azima. I'm from Page. For the past 13 years, we've been pursuing better English proficiency in schools. But last week, I was flicking through Facebook, and I happened to watch this press conference on industries. And the topic at hand was that the industries were complaining that they were complaining about the 50,000 fine, COVID fine. Okay, but putting that aside, As I watch the press conference, and you have the comments at the bottom where you can participate, and the comments that were coming out of that press conference was not the topic at hand, but why the press conference was being held in English. It just went on and on. All the readers were writing about why this PC is being conducted in English. We're not having the PC in Australia or UK, and that was the main contention. So why have we come to this stage? I wonder if anybody can answer that question. And secondly, very quickly, Mr. Tay, since you're an accountant, especially, I'm an accountant as well, but I noticed that schools are still conducting principal account in Bahasa Malaysia. I think this is a very big mistake. I think that your association and other associations should speak to the ministry about introducing principal account in English, because as we know, it's a perpetual problem that there is a shortage of Bumiputera accountants. And I think this is one of the obstacles that can be overcome if principal account can be taught in English. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Well, let's touch on the issue of language. Hamdi, UKM and UM, there are issues about language, and obviously sometimes becomes a political issue as well.
Wow, this is quite a difficult issue to grasp. The university in Malaysia, particularly the public university, there's a mixture of teaching, what language to use. And in University Malaya, since we are having lots of international students, our policy is very simple. If in the class we have even one international student who could not understand Malay language, hence we need to conduct that particular study in English or the language that they can understand. So that's
whatever subject.
Whatever subject. So that has been in place for a while. Otherwise, do not take international students. So we want to be a global university where we are actually attracting 3,000 or 4,000 students from abroad coming into our shore, and we can't use a language that they don't understand. Asking them to learn our language, yes, we do put them in our language classes, Bahasa Malaysia classes, but for them to assimilate and also interact with the locals. But when it comes to teaching, it's a different ballgame altogether. Hence, in University Malaya, the policy is very clear. You can teach in Malay, provided everybody can understand. But when it comes to any international students in your class, it has to be taught in English. And we get almost in all classes, majority of the 77 undergraduate courses are having a few international students in it. So
was UKM a similar policy?
In UKM, we have a mixture. So those courses who are not ready to be taught in English, so they cannot take international students. Right. So there's a compromise there. So therefore, there are some courses which are being taught in English, and some in the national language.
Great, thank you. Taylor, you were asked specifically the question.
Okay. Thank you, Guy. I'm going to answer in a very different way. I think the use of English is very, very necessary because as an international state, in the global economy, language proficiency is a competitive edge for any of the nations competing with each other. Even within ASEAN, you'll find that recently Indonesia, I was told, that has invested millions in Mandarin because they are preparing for huge investment coming from China. That's one. You will also see some countries embracing more than just the national language. So I think it's difficult to answer that question. It's a toss-up between national sentiments versus the practicality of life, So to me, if anyone asks me, I think this country, being a nation of diversity, should have proficiency in at least 4 languages, not just in 1 or 2. We could be proficient in 4, I think we will be far ahead in terms of our, with our trading partners. With regards to the subject particularly in accounting, yes, I do agree that because of the terminologies, because of the technical know-how, it would be good to have a very good foundation in English. However, we've also seen that despite of its handicap, there are many students who come from rural backgrounds, who have only learned Bahasa Malaysia as their only language. They have also excelled. And I think it has always been the national aspiration to produce adequate Bumiputera accountants. I believe that the Malaysian Institute of Accountants have a target of 60,000 by 2020, that was last year. I don't think they have ever achieved that, but on the good front, there has a noticeable increase in the number of Bumiputera accountants, and many of whom I think are already in household names, running the country's GLCs as well as the government agencies and in the private sector. And that itself, I think, is a selling point. That is also, to me, has been a very successful initiative given the past 20 years of initiative.
Great, thank you so much. We've got, how much more time have we got? Minutes. Okay, great. Let's have one more question, then we'll have a quick roundup. Any quick questions from the audience? Yes, sir. We have to be quick, yeah?
Yeah. My name is Jaswan Singh. I'm with MIT Academy, which does a lot of IR 4.0 courses.
Great.
And also with MIT STEM International School.
Good.
Just a general comment. The topic discussed is University of the Future.
Sure.
My suggestion is holders, and that should include not only the supply side, what we are seeing today on stage, but you should also, because it's the future, the youth is also very important. We should have somebody from the student side, a leader representing the stakeholder of the students also. And we should also have the policy makers or the regulators, because they are also equally interested in the factory of the future. And then there should be an NGO group which takes care of this future and all that. So just to give a general comment that actually have more representation in terms of what we call University of the Future.
Great. Thank you very much. So, I mean, hopefully during the day you'll see greater representation from various groups. This morning's panel was obviously the VC panel. Can we just close the panel? Let's go once round the panel and 1 minute for each speaker. Are you optimistic about the future and the University of the Future? Lily, Prof. Lily, out in Penang, can you start with that? Are you optimistic about the future?
Of course, I'm optimistic. I think, but we need to cater and we need to understand the younger generation that is now coming on board. They learn differently, they look at things very differently from many of us who grew up in a different age. So our faculty members must be apprised, they must connect. So I am optimistic if we can do that connection.
Build that connection. Excellent. Thank you. Prof. Mushtak.
Absolutely optimistic. The future is human, and education is something that is valued by the society, and it's really up to us how to take this trust and run with it and make it really great.
And from the International University Malaya-Wales, optimistic about the future?
I am optimistic. Universities are great institutions that have survived many decades and centuries of ups and downs. And I don't see why they can't have a great future ahead. That's it.
Excellent, thank you. Prof. Zita?
I would say, yeah, extremely optimistic, because I think the university should chart its own design and moving forward. I think they're capable of change. I think the role of university is still very important, but they must address the changes and address it fast and well. Thank you.
And Prof. Hamdi, final remarks from you.
Well, the future is there, and universities are actually gearing up towards the future very fast. The public university is changing, and I can see that with the guidance of the Ministry of Higher Education. I think we have been changing very fast now, and we can see that the future is very bright for the public university. The challenges are huge, financially particularly, but if we are actually strategizing the growth, for example, and having a very, very strong sustainable financing system. I think the future of public university particularly is actually very, very good.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the audience for the questions. Thank you very much for the panel. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the day, and obviously it was great to see you all here face to face. Thank you very much.
Thank you.